the X-Wing started to open. I was like, oh, I know what that means.
I forgot that.
Hello, welcome to a podcast named Tim. I'm Zach, and this is That One Show, a series where we look at shows that lasted 3 seasons or less, kind of go through it, give an overview of the series, if it's good, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, all that good stuff. This is, I think, the 4th show we've covered, and we just kind of like to have a little fun, do something a little different outside of the Power Rangers and Star Wars and movie reviews we do. So it's a little bit more long game in some respects because it takes a lot of time to consume those shows. Today is Fireball XL5. But like I said, we have done 3 other shows: Fighting Foodons, Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, and Star Wars Clone Wars, the 2D micro series that was on Cartoon Network. So for this one, we're going a bit back. We're going back into the 60s. But before we get into the review, please do give the video a thumbs up, and of course, subscribe to the channel. It does a lot to help us out. On top of this show, we do movie reviews, Power Ranger videos, and also some Star Wars stuff. So let's get into it. What is Fireball XL5, and is it worth your time? It is a 1960s British science fiction kid show, and it is the Super Marionation, however you say that, marionettes, marionettes, motion. You know, the Gerry and Sylvia Anderson style of TV show. Think Thunderbirds is probably their biggest hit, but basically, this is Thunderbirds, but in black and white and in space. Kind of, in some respects, a prototype to Star Trek. If I remember correctly, this did come out before Star Trek, and this feels like a shift in the way, not a way television was made, but in sci-fi. It kind of felt like a shift from the 1950s style of sci-fi into the 60s, because it does have a lot of those tropes of the 50s with a Star Trek-ish kind of idea to it. So is it good? It's okay. I would only recommend it to someone who, like me, is really interested in practical effects. I have zero ability to do effects. I just find practical effects fascinating. I don't really like a lot of the Gerry Anderson shows like Thunderbirds, or some of the other ones. Because they're very long and drawn out. Luckily, this is shorter. I think Thunderbirds episodes are typically in the 45-minute range. These are only 22-minute episodes. But I like the idea of the practical effects and the look and the puppets. I just liked all of the care that went into making these kind of shows. And it ran for 1 season, had 39 episodes. Again, came out in 1962 to 1963. And basically, we're following what's called World Space Patrol, if I remember correctly. And basically, the Space Patrol is out there patrolling space. Kind of, we're following their voyages as they go through different sectors of space. Of course, it's very episodic. You have your villain of the day or issue of the episode, and we're going to resolve it in 22 minutes. That's my kind of television. And basically, our main characters are Colonel Steve Zodiac, Dr. Venus. Zodiac is your very straight-laced. He's your face. He's your baby face, blonde hair. Model astronaut. Dr. Venus, French, very bad French accent, and very much the gal pal in some respects. Professor Matthew, goes by Maddock. He is the navigator. He's the science guy, science officer. So we have our Kirk, we have our scientist, we have our Spock, and we have our science officer. I guess Venus is more of the McCoy, and Maddock is more of the Spock. So we have our 3 areas covered as far as space. Robert the robot is also on there. Super annoying voice, very synthesized and over the top, and talks too much and too slow. And Zuni the Lazoon, it's a uh, chimpanzee kind of that's sentient, somewhat. It's Venus's pet. Once he is introduced, he kind of he also talks kind of like a parrot, where he kind of like mimics what people are saying. But once he gets introduced to the show, which is a couple episodes in, a lot of his being there dominates the show, unfortunately, too much. Kind of goes much more heavy into the Saturday morning cartoon kind of storyline where this silly animal is constantly getting in the way and causing a muck, and also constantly somehow accidentally saving the day. But when they get into some of the more actual sci-fi aspects of the show, I think is when it really works. You have a lot of really cool introduction of a lot of different villains and aliens of the week, and that's what I would say is when the show is at its best. When you're seeing those different aliens, the best or the most widely known, I guess, probably the Subterrians. Of course, they live underground, and they're probably the most prevalent aliens that you see on the show. I think they're in about 3 or 4 episodes. The only kind of recurring human villains are Boris and Griselda, space spy, very just husband and wife, over the top Russian stereotype characters. Those they appear in a few episodes, not great episodes that they're in, but the ones with the Subterrans are normally really good. And again, generally speaking, whenever there's an alien, a new alien race that we're meeting, those are pretty good. The effects are really good. The music of the show is very interesting. The opening theme is interesting. Let me play a little bit of the opening theme for you right here. So that's the opening theme. It's okay. I don't get why you open with that. I wish it would have been a much shorter opening there. And in fact, I think the ending show, the show that they ended every episode on, which, if I remember correctly, became a #1 hit over in England and in Europe's, is a much better song. And in some respects, I wish they would have used that as the show's opening theme. And this is what this sounds like here.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball.
As you can tell, big difference. And it's got a good vibe to it. Definitely dates the show in some respects. And a lot of the dialogue they use also dates it. There's a lot of people are called tooties, which apparently is kind of like goofball, being silly, goober, like just their general term when someone's not acting normally. But there's also a couple episodes in here that are like dream sequence episodes that mean nothing. I should say something about, I guess, the technology of the show. The show, so Fireball XL5 is the name of the actual spaceship that Colonel Zodiac flies. The area they're patrolling is called Sector 25, and that's where most of the show takes place. I think they go to a couple different sectors a few times. They have oxygen pills, which they take, and that allows them to fly off into space without helmets or anything. Again, a lot of that 1950s kind of feel to me. Whenever I think of the 50s, I think of like people just standing out in space and on planets without any kind of breathing apparatuses. So that's a part of what they use. There's also Fireball Junior, which is kind of their land capsule that they detaches from the ship to go down whenever they need to visit a planet. And something that they did, which was kind of really smart for the show, was because the puppets aren't really good at walking, they actually used these scooters basically to have the characters always flying on, so they'd have to walk. They could constantly fly on these whenever they're traversing land. Um, but overall, I think if you like practical effects and you like 1950s sci-fi or Thunderbirds or those kind of shows, that's the only people I think the show would really work for. And even then, there's some episodes that are just somewhat of slogs to get through, especially when they're more Zuni the Lazoon heavy episodes, which get to be too many of them, unfortunately. But again, when they're doing just science fiction, space stuff, I think it works much better. But overall, okay show. I obviously didn't reach the heights of of like Thunderbirds, but if you're a big sci-fi fan, I think you can probably appreciate some of the nuances. And to me, again, I think it kind of transitions from the 50s to the 60s with the style of um, of the science fiction that we're seeing. That's my thoughts on this show, Fireball XL5. You can watch, I believe every episode is available currently on Amazon Prime. It's at least where I watched it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts if you liked it, if you grew up watching it. Obviously, I did not, but was something I wanted to take a look at and see if it was any good, because I like that look and the aesthetic of the puppets and the Gary Anderson shows, and putting it in space was a pretty easy sell for me. Next show we're going to be doing for this series, don't worry, there's plenty of other videos in between, but the next one I hope to have within the next month is the Ronin Warriors, which is a 90s anime show that was on Toonami that I watched, lasted one season, and I'm going to be getting into that. Don't remember a lot about it, had some of the toys, but we'll talk about that another time. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and see you next time on a podcast named Tim.